Live. I think I am live. Hi everyone, this is Dr. Kasia Kainz, Doctor of Clinical Nutrition. Let's talk about little dirty little secrets that toxicity carries in our daily life that is more relevant than you think. I want to share something with you today. Let me see. There you go. I think it's fine. So, hopefully you'll enjoy it later. This is a day off. I understand it's a holiday. I want to talk about something that you are probably remotely familiar with. But at the same time, I can guarantee you there's certain things you don't know about it. Let me see if I am live. Yes, I am. Okay. So, let me just check if it's coming here. It's not coming here for some reason. What I want to say is there is a chemical called glyphosate, and you may know it as Roundup. And it's been around for many decades, actually. It started as an antibiotic, very selective, and then it was used in farming, and then it was introduced. It was also a chelator in piping. It was chelating metals, which is relevant to what we're going to talk about. And then it ended up in the genetically modified pesticide called Roundup Ready, and that started almost 20 years ago, around 20 years ago, actually. So what does it have to do with our daily life, and why is it important? Why do I want to bring it out today? Well, a couple of things. I remember, one of the solutions that I like to suggest is that you check in your garage, you check what you use to spray your lawn, what services do you use to actually kill your weeds. Your neighbors do the same. And if you don't pay attention, you may not even know that Roundup is really the most popular pesticide right now, and it is, we're dumping so much of it on our planet annually. And what happens is we have it in our urine. 90% of population, according to research, have glyphosate in the system. Okay, 9 out of 10 people. So probably you and I, even though maybe we don't consume it. And I'll show you that you probably do consume it too. So what's the relevance? So imagine that you have a dog, you have a little daughter, a little son, and you get into the parks. Okay, so I've been to a park, and then I look at the research on Seattle parks for how frequently they are sprayed. And what I see is that there are more than 100 applications per park sometimes. And I look at the map, and the map is, like, just for Seattle proper, is inundated with little dots of parks which are sprayed. So when we're talking about animals, and your shoes, because you go to a park, you don't walk barefoot, you're going to walk in your shoes. Your dogs, your children, you come back home, you carry it on your shoes. Your dogs will carry it on the paws and lick it off. The kids will eventually lick it off because they walk on their floor, on your carpeting, it's going to get on. So what's the deal with glyphosate for you? Well, normally pesticides, herbicides, chemicals, man-made chemicals are stored in your fatty tissue. So basically for the humans, okay? And in nature, fungi actually process those in the soil. So there are some mechanisms for protection. So your body will delegate those chemicals, tuck them into your fat tissue, your abdominal fat tissue, so you actually don't circulate the pesticides or the herbicides in your bloodstream, getting them into your brain, getting them into your tissues, your heart, because that's dangerous. Okay, so it's just tucked in and tucked away. Now, glyphosate is very different because they took glycine, phosphate, amine, put it together, and now suddenly this is highly water soluble. Okay, water soluble. So, fat soluble pesticides, if you spray, you spray on a hard skin, you can wash it up with soapy water, for example. But this is water soluble, so it's readily absorbed. So it's in the rain, in the soil, in the clouds, and in the air that we breathe. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky because what happens is we learn it was a selective this is getting really interested, and it's relevant to you actually, and to me, because what happened was, as a selective antibiotic, it was killing, and it is killing, the good bacteria selectively, but it's not killing yeast, E. coli, or salmonella. And it can cause the inflammation. It can cause inflammation and dysbiosis of your gut and leaky gut, because it creates that imbalance. But it's getting worse. So there is a researcher, Dr. Stephanie Seneff. I'm going to quote her here. She's a senior research scientist at MIT. Glyphosate appears to be strongly correlated with the rise in celiac disease. Now, gets a little bit complicated. A couple of things I want to share. It does seem to correlate with higher level of gluten sensitivity, because it exaggerates sensitivity to gluten. Basically, when glyphosate hits the cell membranes of your intestinal lining, it upregulates gliadin receptor, and gliadin is one of the amino acids in wheat and gluten grains. So then suddenly people become more allergic. And so, unfortunately, glyphosate started to be, entering our drinking water supplies as early as 1990s. Okay, so that's really problematic. So if you can stop using Roundup, that would be fantastic, because, if you can talk to your neighbors too, by the way, there are alternatives that are safer, and you can just Google, there's so many things you can do to keep your weeds down without it. And the problem that I'm hearing researchers saying is that only if you spray with Roundup for weeds, let's say, only 0.001% of that application actually is applied to the weed. The rest of it, which is almost 100%, actually misses the target and goes into the soil. And so, interestingly, when you look at the Mississippi River, let me see, 80% of Roundup sprayed somehow ends up in the Mississippi River, and by the time you go to the end of the river, the concentration is very high, and they were testing up to 75% of glyphosate was found in the rain and in the air. Actually, there is highly contaminated, especially towards New Orleans, for example, and it's cumulative. Not so much because it was sprayed there, but it's because it's so readily absorbable. It's readily absorbable for the gut, as you can see. It's readily absorbable by the soil, and we don't have mechanism to clear it as we would if it was fat soluble, as other chemicals. So it is tricky. Now, the worst part is, this is not all. Are you ready for this? So, are there any questions there? By the way, no questions? So listen to this. There's something that is not on the ingredient list of foods you eat, and it is called desiccation. Desiccation is a common practice in farming right now. You don't have to know about it. It's not labeled, so we don't know that it happens. A lot of crops undergo it, and basically you burn the crop, and wheat is a common one. You take Roundup, you take glyphosate, and you actually kind of burn, speed up the drying and the crop gathering for the wheat. So it creates, it's better business, it's faster, it's more efficient, and so on and so forth, but the grain doesn't mature. The wheat changes a little bit. It has a different ratio now of fiber, of carbs, And when you spray with glyphosate, remember it is water soluble, and unfortunately when they're looking at it, you can't wash it off. So once they desiccate the crop, the pesticide gets internally into that plant, and you're going to eat that. It's not washable. It's not just wheat that they desiccate. Barley, I think lentils, sweet potatoes. I have a list here. There's quite a few crops. Lentils, I mentioned citrus. How do you know? The only way to actually prevent it is to pick organic certified. That's the only way, because organic producers are not allowed to use traditional pesticides. Definitely not glyphosate. Right? So now glyphosate ended up in Roundup. Roundup Ready was started to be used 20 years ago or so. And so we have genetic soy, for example, which is basically the DNA of soy containing that pesticide. So it's like a pesticide factory right now. So when you're eating soy, that the seeds from company that makes this product are already genetically modified with that pesticide in the genome of it. So when we ingest that, we're ingesting that genetic material, and that does affect us. So, one of the problems is that the glyphosate was supposed to only affect plants. Because of the way it works, it breaks down the ability of crops to make certain amino acids, to make certain proteins. And so it was considered safe for humans because we're not plants. However, we eat the crops, and we rely on these crops to provide those amino acids. So as the crops start being impaired and not thriving because of that, we also will lack certain amino acids. And one of those problems is tryptophan, that is supposed to make serotonin, that is supposed to regulate a lot of things, including bowels and including insulin, actually. So it gets really iffy. And now another GMO crop that is prevalent on the market is corn. It's a Bt corn, genetically modified to carry Bt bacteria in them. It's a long story, maybe not for today, but the bottom line is that the legal status of that genetically modified corn in the States is a pesticide. It's not corn anymore. It's actually legally called a pesticide. So we are ingesting pesticides, and we're creating problems there. So let me read you some things here. So the solution to it is there are more than 2 crops that are genetically modified. And so the only real abstinence from GMOs is using a GMO-free certification label, or using a certification for organically grown produce. And there is organization non-GMOshoppingguide.com that you can check out with updates. Here we go. There's interesting stuff going on because the increase in allergies corresponds to the introduction of GMO crops, and especially soy. Like soy allergy skyrocketed accordingly. Let me see if I can pull it out. And look at this. There has been 400% increase in use of antidepressants since the launch of GMOs. And remember that glyphosate is a chelator, so it can chelate out some minerals, potentially leaving us without the needed minerals. By 2012, 88% of corn and 94% of soy grown in the United States were genetically modified. So I want you to look in your pantry, look at your salad dressings. Look at any salad dressing, because that's where soy and corn oils are used. Oftentimes, soy and corn oils are used in restaurants because they're very versatile and inexpensive, and there's a lot of them. And so that's where we get exposure. And as I said, 90% of our population carries glyphosate already. Let me look at some of the studies on GMOs, corn and soy related, because these are the biggest. There was microvilli atrophy in mice feeding on Bt toxin in potato. Microvilli atrophy is just death of the most important little cells in your intestinal lining. We have studies on animals. Obviously, we don't have studies on humans, because these are risky studies. Let me see. Mice fed Bt toxin in foods also reacted to more of other foods. And what do I see in my practice? There is increase in food sensitivities. A lot of people go through a maze just to have one day of meals without reacting. Livestock. Okay, animals fed GMOs became deficient in cobalt, calcium, B12, magnesium, manganese. B12 is a main neurotransmitter. There's your depression and neurological problems. Magnesium is your anxiety, PMS, inability to sleep. Manganese, these are key minerals as well, and calcium, of course. Livestock improved on GMO-free feed. Livestock develop ulcerations and gut problems and die faster when fed GMOs. What is the feed of factory farmed livestock? Derived of corn and soy, both mostly genetically modified. Roundup causes gut dysbiosis in cows and poultry and is blamed for epidemic in botulism. Mice fed on GMO soybeans for 8 months developed damaged testicular, liver, and pancreatic cells, reduction in alpha amylase enzymes. These help you break down starches. Would that explain why so many people are sensitive to carbs? They cannot eat them. Their trypsin inhibitors increase 7 times. Prevents digestion of many nutrients, especially proteins, which can also cause gas and bloating. There was, basically environmental working group assessed that an American consumes about 193 pounds of genetically modified foods annually, and it's a conservative number. Let me see here, 68 pounds of beet sugar. You don't buy beet sugar, but you're going to have it in drinks, in processed foods, in packaged foods, anything that is sweetened, right? So you wouldn't think about that. 58 pounds of corn syrup. Any corn derivatives, mostly, if it's not labeled organic, it's probably GMO BT corn. 38 pounds of soybean oil. And it's not maybe because you buy it and you have it in the kitchen. But if you go to a restaurant, you can ask them what oils they use, and you'll hear. And if it's soy oil, ask them if it's organic, and I can bet money they're going to tell you no, because restaurants won't be able to afford organic oils. They use too much of it. So 29 pounds of corn-based products. We go to Mexican restaurant, what do we eat? Corn chips, right? So let me see here what else I have for you. There's a lot of concern because, my concern is for human health, for gut health. I hear consistent feedback from some people very involved in tracking GMO crops, working with clinicians. So this is not a study, this is anecdotal. I can't confirm it. It's just something that I hear a number of times. So I'm going to tell you what I hear. That when doctors actually start putting their patients on GMO-free diet, a lot of the gut problems start subsiding, and it may take a few weeks. But there have been cases of diarrhea and ulcers clearing in 2 days. Anecdotal stories. The prescription of GMO-free diet consistently reports improvement in diarrhea, constipation, IBD, IBS, allergies, asthma, and abdominal pain, gastrointestinal and behavioral problems. So, I'm just the reality is we don't live in a bubble. We breathe, we drink, we eat. And when we eat in restaurants, we depend on food resourcing of the restaurant. And the restaurant practices are that a huge minority of restaurants we go to are organic or use genetically modified free foods. The foods are, there's more foods than soy and corn on the market that have been genetically modified. But whether it's genetically modified because of the Roundup already spliced into the genetic information of the crop you eat, like soy, or whether the Roundup glyphosate is just a pesticide sprayed in your backyard or in the public park where you take your children and your dog every day, right? Or whether it's your sandwich that you get in a deli, it's not organic wheat, it's just regular wheat. So you don't know if it was desiccated and it was run and dried through with Roundup as well, which is glyphosate. We are student in it and we don't have any choice. So because it's water soluble, it's not stored. It's going to get into your gut, potentially, disrupt it, create more environment for gluten sensitivity, create dysbiosis, inflammation, disrupt the good bacteria and kill them selectively. So there's like a lot of complexities, and then you see some research on animals and it's not looking good. So let me see. Tap. Can I tap this? Okay, you guys. So let me know if you have any questions here, because I've been the talking head as usual. Any questions at all? No questions. So the solution is be mindful of where you eat. Don't get paranoid, because that's not helpful. This is what we have, but we do have a responsibility to clean up, provide some nutrients, make sure that we minimize it. And so the biggest things you can do is keep your shoes by the door, right? Use alternatives to pesticides. Get organics when you can, and get a water filter. Filter any of these pesticides, glyphosates. See if you can filter them so you can have a safe water, because you have to drink every day. So you can get, it is in drinking water. And see if we go from there. I'll see you tomorrow if you don't have any questions. Let me see. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time. I'll pick another topic. If anybody wants to throw a topic for tomorrow, tonight, type it in. I'll look at it later and tomorrow as well. Let's see if I can address it. Otherwise, I'll have some ideas to share. And I also wanted to remind you that we're going to do this tomorrow on Wednesday. On Thursday and on Friday, I have the same live webinar, just in case you can't get to one or the other. It's a free webinar. It's more like an hour when I talk more about solutions and practicality and where that toxicity is seeping into your life, and how to protect your loved ones and yourself. And then the following Tuesday, I believe, we start our 30-day detox program, which is your manual, which tells you here's what's happening, here's what we can do for it. So hopefully maybe you will join us and just change your life that way as well. It's a lot of fun and a lot of great tools. So let me see, any questions at all? So enjoy the rest of the evening and the day off, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow and you will bring more questions then. All right? Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Patricia. Somehow, I don't know why it's not showing. Let me see here. Write a comment. Test. Let's see if it posts. Oh my gosh, there's a lot. You know what? I didn't see any of the posts. Let me see. Well water. Great question, Bobby. Well water, there's certain things that the government regulates, but well water, it's your responsibility. So well water typically is in more rural areas. And when I noticed when we lived in Maryland, many of these areas, when people were moving in, building homes, were either close to farming or were old farms, or they had been formerly farmlands. So there was still a lot of runoff, still a lot of pesticides. And so that's where you really want to have a whole house water filtration system. And Aquasana is a good company with a whole house water filtration system. Let me see, any other questions here? So how come I didn't see them before here? Okay, you guys, yes, I will put a link under here to my 2 favorite water filters for the kitchen, so you can take a look at it. Both are very reputable and affordable, and I actually have both of them. And there's many more, but these are really, really good, solid, great reputation, and I love them too. All right, great questions. Bring them on tomorrow. This is just a warm-up. We'll talk more 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. Hi, Don. So nice to see you. Yeah, I'm learning here, and for some reason I wasn't seeing the comments here, you guys. So, all right. Have a wonderful evening. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.